Mark Rogers TV talking a little college football with Jake Brown. You can catch him on the Jake Brown Show for CBS Radio. We'll dive into a little bit later where you can find Jake. He's got a number of platforms where you can find him. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, we want to touch on some college football. So Jake, I found you on social media. I'm glad I found you. So you've got some opinions about this college football playoff system that was once, of course, the BCS that just got hammered by people, including myself. Now we've got a 4-team playoff that has got a 3-year track record. So what do you think about it?
I think it's trash, honestly. How you determine 4 teams out of the hundreds in the country, out of the top 25, whatever you want to call it, makes zero sense to me. It's not a playoff when it's 4 teams. What other sport do you have a 4-team playoff? In the NBA, you have 16 teams make it. In the NFL, you have 12 teams make it. Major League Baseball, you have 10 teams make it. So it's the only sport where there's only 4 teams making it. You have all these schools fighting. You have guys making tougher schedules so they have a shot to even get there. You lose a game and you're done for some smaller schools. So it really, in my mind, makes zero sense. It's not fair to the outside teams like the 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. You saw a couple of those teams who probably should have deserved a shot to at least be in it. So I think the minimum it should be is 8 teams. I think 16 is a lot, but I wouldn't mind it. I think 8 is the perfect number. And I know you're going to say, oh, well, then there's going to be 9, 10, 11, and 12 out. But 8 teams at least gives more teams a chance to fight for it and not worry that their season is basically over after one loss. And then we can avoid the situations of, oh, McCaffrey's not going to play. Oh, this guy's not going to play for these meaningless bowl games.
Well, we think along the same lines, Jake, because I think I would love to see 16. I won't go into that. I'll go into the 8 team that would appease me, that would be fine, because my defense of the 18 playoff is that you involve all 5 conferences. So they automatically have a flawed system when you have 5 major conferences and you have 4 slots. And if Notre Dame ever becomes Notre Dame and they steal away a slot, or like Ohio State stole away a slot from a conference champion, you're leaving out 2 conference champions. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, college basketball does it better than anyone else. Obviously, we're not going to go talk about 64 teams, 68 teams. That's nuts. But make it competitive. Make it so that people care in the last month. I also hate the fact that you're doing these games a month after the season. Here in New York, we forget about it. We're like, oh, there's still college football going on? I mean, give it a week or 2 after the season. Do guys really need a month to go do college things? And you see all these stories coming out of these good teams. A guy shoots his finger off. A guy gets in a drunken fight at a bar. You leave college kids a month to do dumb things. They're going to do dumb things. I mean, I was in college 3-4 years ago. Like, you give me an extra month of not playing the game, you're not going to be the smartest person in that month. Guys are going to go out and party. They're going to go out and drink, smoke. They're not going to be at the highest level. So play the games closer to the season as well if you're going to have Chick-fil-A bowls and Peach Bowl and all this stuff. It's just the whole thing around it is just the reason why I don't watch a ton of college football. And I think if they change that, you're going to bring in a whole new fan base like New York, like those cities that don't really have a team. Because it's going to be more enjoyable to watch if they just change a couple of minor kinks here and there.
Well, you bring up a couple of good points because of the layoff. I think one is, these kids can get in trouble. So they've got time on their hands to get in trouble. And we see it not just with the teams contending for a national championship, but all the bowl teams. It seems like players are suspended left and right. And then the other thing you bring up is that with the 4 to 5, 6 weeks layoff, you almost have a different team out there. Can you imagine playing the Super Bowl in March? It's like, who knows how good these teams are after they've got to lay off for 6 weeks and practice all that time and try to stay sharp.
Yeah, what other sport do you see a layoff like that? It's like the guys get a 6-week vacation. It's like, all right, guys, let's get up back on the field. Let's lace them up. Let's play. I mean, it just doesn't make sense for college kids. It's just not the ideal situation you want to be in. And sadly, I don't think it's going to change. I think they've just made so much money, and it's all about these schools making money and sponsors, and the kids still making nothing. And I hope it changes, but I really don't see it changing for maybe another 8 to 10 years at this point.
Well, I think the problem as well that you're going to have is that the timing of the whole situation doesn't play into what they want to create in college football, and that's having football around the holidays. So you end the season the first week of December with the championship games for the conferences, and then if you've got this playoff that starts right away, then you miss out on the whole New Year's Eve, New Year's Day college football extravaganza kind of feel.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm on New Year's Eve. I'm not thinking about watching college football that much here. It's New Year's is just a time to party with your family, have a good time, family and friends. Have it during Christmas, have it before Christmas. It doesn't matter when it is. I mean, it should be closer to the season. I don't look at the holiday as factoring in. It's like New Year's, that means it's time to watch football. I don't look at that. I honestly look at that as if it's a New Year's like this year, it was like NFL Sunday. So I don't think the holiday should play a factor. Just get it over with in December and move on, in my opinion.
Well, the other knock you're going to get, not necessarily from me, obviously you can have too many teams in at some point and diminish from the season. And it's also football. You can't play it like basketball. You can't turn around and play 2 days later. So you've got that issue. But college basketball is not nearly as possible. I don't know if they know this in New York City, but college basketball is not nearly as popular as college football. All you have to do is look at the TV ratings. And one of the reasons why is, I think, in addition to the kids leaving school and going to the NBA, where you don't have established stars in college basketball anymore, is that so many teams make the tournament that the regular season is somewhat null and void. If you finish 5th or 6th or 7th in the ACC, you're still going to get a tournament bid. And people feel as though that's going to diminish college football if you let too many teams in, and there's going to be regular season games at the end of the season that are meaningless because both teams are going to make the playoff.
My argument would be, look at the ratings for March Madness. Who doesn't watch the tournament? Who isn't filling out a bracket? There's people who never watch sports who are watching because they're looking for their bracket. They're looking to make money. College football, there's 2 to 4 games that matter. The rest of the bowl games no one cares about. So it's 4 games that matter versus 32 games to start, and then 16, and then it trickles down. There's not a soul that doesn't watch March Madness because everyone's invested either in a gambling way or the bracket or just for fun and pride or just their alma mater, whatever it may be. So I look at it like there's a ton of meaningful games for that month where there's only 2 to 4 in the college football playoff.
Those people must be in bars watching games where the ratings don't count, because actually you can take the lowest rated bowl games and they rank higher than most of March Madness till the Final Four.
Maybe it's my personal opinion. I mean, the numbers are proving me wrong, but I just think the postseason in college basketball is better than the short postseason in college football. It's just more enjoyable, and I'm more invested in it because the brackets make it fun. There's no brackets in college football. It just isn't.
Yeah, there's no connection between the bowl games and the championship. They're completely isolated events. And when they named it the Bowl Championship Series, that was a complete misnomer because there was no series to it. They were completely isolated games in different locations that had no connection to each other, and there was one championship game. Or yeah, March Madness. I am not knocking March Madness. It works because it's basketball, and these kids can play Friday and Sunday or Thursday and Saturday and then turn around and do it again. And it's a phenomenal event that works for basketball. And I do think that more football teams need to be involved in the championship. And I think I've even heard that 8 teams is too much because the 8th team didn't necessarily earn it. They didn't have nearly as good a season as the top 1 or 2 teams in the country. But if you're 8 out of 128, this is my thinking, among other things, that you have to, first of all, represent all the conferences, just like any other sport in the world. If you win a conference championship, you get a chance to play for the national championship or the league championship. Then the other thing is that if you're number 8 out of 128, that's a much higher percentage than being, like you say, number 12 out of 32 in the NFL and making the playoffs. You're still that close to the cream of the crop. You are on top of the world. And then if you're number 8 in the country and you get into the playoff, you have to beat 3 of the top 7 teams in the country to win the championship. So if you haven't earned it at that point, I don't know what you have to do to earn a championship.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but make it less bowl game. Make the bowl games more meaningful. Then, if 5 through 25, whatever, are going to play in these bowl games, make them more meaningful instead of a sponsored event where your stars aren't playing. I mean, who wants to see Stanford without McCaffrey? I mean, it's just, who cares at that point? You want to see these studs go out there and play instead of saying, "Oh, I got to prep for a draft." Because these guys don't give a flying you know what, because they're out there working for March in the draft class versus finishing out a season with the game is meaningless to them. They're saying, "Hey guys, I'm going to take this off because I want to prepare to make a couple $1 million next year." I mean, they lose the whole team aspect of the game is just ruined, and it's just embarrassing to see a player quit on their team for a bowl game, quote unquote, aka $1 million sponsored event. So that's what frustrates me the most. And I think that having it condensed like you have in March Madness, where Selection Sunday, oh look, 4 or 5 days later, we're going to play the tournament. It's in 2017, where our attention spans are so short. No one wants to wait 6 weeks for another game. People want to wait 4 to 5 days. Boom, it's right there. The tournament starts. So those are the two things I would change. Make the bowl games more valuable. Make less bowl games. Make them mean something more. Let these stars play and do it closer to the season. December 14th, start the bowl games. By Christmas, every bowl game and championship game by Christmas should be done. It shouldn't carry over to January 9th of the next calendar year. It's just ridiculous.
So if you go with 8 teams, let's say, then how do you make the other bowl games more meaningful? Let's say you're team number 10 in the country. You're the 10th ranked team in the country, and you're playing in fill in the blank bowl game, and you're playing the 18th ranked team in the country. How do you make, if it's not connected to the championship?
I'd say make a bracket of some sorts, or a consolation bracket, and let the schools, I don't know, get scholarships, something out of it. Let the schools benefit in some way and turn it. I don't know if a bracket would really work, because that will carry over to the next year. But there's some way you can do it. I don't even know, but make the matchups good. I can't. They get paid the big bucks to think of ideas like that. I can't think of that. But there are ways that it can be done to make it more meaningful. I don't think you need a Chick-fil-A bowl and the Peach Bowl, all these different names, and the Alamo Tire Bowl, and it's just, even the names of them are funky. I mean, have the commercials be sponsored by that company instead of naming it that bowl. I don't give it a cool trophy. There's things that can be done.
So, Jake, you do a show in New York City. Obviously, it's a pro sports town unlike any other, with 2 teams, if you're counting hockey, 3 teams per sport. Much college football talk. You basically gave us a framework that says that there's not a whole lot of college football talk, and you gave us a way that there might be more. But when there is some college football talk, what are people talking about?
Yeah, and the fact that me personally, they got rid of my team after my freshman year at Hofstra might have factored in. But yeah, I think people talk about Rutgers. They've been struggling, and it's just been embarrassment. But there is pride in Rutgers because you have the guys that come out of them. McCourty, Ray Rice. You've had star players come out of that school. People talk about Syracuse a little bit. They've been a little inconsistent, but people talk about them a little bit. And really, those are powerhouses: Ohio State, Michigan. Those are really the schools. But really, not a ton of college football besides that, because there's just no local teams around here.
And that's what I didn't understand when the Big Ten added Rutgers and Maryland. They certainly didn't do it to improve the football in the league. They added Nebraska to improve the football. They didn't add Maryland and Rutgers. They were talking about adding markets, TV markets, New York City, Washington, D.C., Baltimore in the Beltway. But if nobody cares about college, or few people care about college football compared to pro sports, and then even those people root and look to the big teams and the major brands, and Rutgers is no good. I just didn't see the connection and why the Big Ten made that move.
I agree. I have no idea why they would put them in a league where they just wouldn't compete. And another reason I'm not a huge college sports person, these conference realignments are just so confusing. I miss the old rivalries, teams with it, like in college basketball, for example. I mean, the Big East, it's just no longer the Big East. It's just changed completely. You don't have the rivalries. Same with ACC. Too many conference realignments for financial reasons is going on, and it's really made me lose a little bit of interest when I used to have it. So, yeah, I just don't understand why you would put Rutgers. I mean, you saw some of those scores, man. They was like 59-0. They were getting just blown out in some of these games. So they do not belong anywhere near the Big Ten. Big Ten, it's unfortunate because they're just not going to get the recruits that any of those Big Ten teams are going to get.
Yeah, Michigan rang up, I think, 78 on them, 78-0. And I looked at that box. I had to look at the box score when I saw that score just to see how much of an annihilation that was. And I just remember seeing things like Rutgers didn't get a first down until there was like 8 minutes left in the game. And they only had like 2 first downs, and they only had like 30 yards of offense. And it was really bad. And between Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, and somebody else, Penn State. Must have been Penn State. Yeah, Rutgers didn't score a point against those 4 teams and got outscored like 240-0. So it's yeah, Rutgers has a long way to go. But if they can keep that New Jersey talent, they got pretty good high school football talent there in New Jersey. If they can harness that, they could be somewhat competitive and have been in the past. So Jake Brown at the Jake Brown Show, CBS Radio. Jake, where can we find you?
You can check out the show on play.it/Jake Brown, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. I don't know who uses Stitcher, but apparently it's on Stitcher. You can follow me, Jake Brown Radio, Jake Brown Show on Twitter. Check out the show. Sports entertainment. We have rappers in there. We got Broadway people. We got players. You name it, we got it. So check it out.
All right, Jake. Appreciate you jumping on board here, connected on social media, and you just accepted the offer. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.